House to vote on McCarthy-backed short-term spending bill as shutdown nears Washington. The House is set to vote on a measure backed by Speaker Kevin McCarthy that would keep the government open for another month at reduced spending levels, despite continued opposition from some hard-right Republicans, who could hand McCarthy yet another defeat in his efforts to avoid a government shutdown. Even if it passes the House, the 165-page bill would not be taken up by the Senate, which is working on its own bipartisan legislation to keep the government running beyond Saturday night, when funding expires. President Biden promised to veto the House bill on Friday, further sealing its fate. Known as a continuing resolution, the House's stopgap bill would fund the government through the end of October, while the Senate's version would keep operations going through November 17. The House version includes spending cuts and a border security measure, while the Senate bill funds the government at current levels and includes aid for Ukraine. The House voted to approve a rule allowing debate on the measure by a vote of 218 to 211 earlier Friday, but at least one Republican who voted in favor, Matt Gaetz of Florida, said he still intended to vote against the bill itself. Nearly a dozen far-right Republicans said they wouldn't support or were unlikely to support any continuing resolution. With just a 4-seat majority in the House, McCarthy has struggled to craft a bill that would avoid a shutdown and attract majority support. Democrats have been united in opposition. Lawmakers have until 12 a.m. on Sunday to come to an agreement to avoid a shutdown, which would force hundreds of thousands of federal employees to go on furlough or continue working without getting paid until the funding lapse ends. Members of the conservative House Freedom Caucus sent a letter to McCarthy on Thursday demanding that he publicly reject the Senate bill. They also want McCarthy to keep the House in session until all 12 individual appropriations bills are passed and detail his plan for getting them over the finish line. No member of Congress can or should be expected to consider supporting a stopgap funding measure without answers to these reasonable questions, the letter said. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than House Republicans passed 3 bills to fund the Departments of Defense, Homeland Security and State for another year on Thursday night, but none of these have a chance of passing in the Senate.